Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday, May 26th, 2022. Exactly 3 years ago, 2 days ago, on May 24th, 2022, I hired my first employee. I'd had subcontractors here and I had grad assistants, and it was kind of like prep for all this, but I had my first employee. And today, 3 years later, we are actively planning to hire our 10th employee and are also actively considering an 11th employee. And so things are kind of bonkers nuts. So this conversation today is absolutely relevant to just my own mindset. It's really interesting because the way these things happen, because I've certainly been a solo operator, and now I'm a firm director. And I put this on the schedule months and months ago. I probably put it back in February and just said this would be an interesting thing to consider. I'm sure somebody brought it up, like in the chat box or something, or as a conversation, like we should talk about that. And so I put it on there, but it's like it couldn't have been on a better week because I'm spending a lot of time thinking about what it's like to run a firm and kind of where I was just 3 years ago with just doing the day-to-day work, direct client contact. All right, so here's some interesting things. Let's start this off. I'm going to ask you guys to, see, that's the right button. I'm going to ask you to take a look at some slides and I'm going to go through 4 slides and take a look at them, and then I'm going to ask you to put some things in the chat about this. All right, here's the first slide. Here's the second slide. Hold off on your comments. I know some of you are just dying to put something in the comment because you know what I got going on here. Here's the third slide. Here's the fourth slide. All right, what do these people have in common? Go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can come on and say it out loud if you're not afraid to be on video. Food, top chefs, they're chefs, top chefs. They have white clothing, that's right. They all have white clothing and short hair. And actually pretty well styled hair, most of them, I think. They're professional photos. I think they're all professional. Well, maybe that's just low res. I don't know. Who's not professional?
The one was blurry, that's why I said that.
Oh yeah, it's probably because I did a bad job of finding it. That's Stephanie Izzard. Okay, so that was the next thing I was going to say. Name these people. Who's that? Anybody know? You're right. Who said they're top chefs? They're all chefs. That's correct. And they all have white clothing. I wasn't thinking about that. This is Kristen Kish. This is Stephanie Izzard. This is Richard Blaze. And come on, everybody should know who this is. If you know anything about celebrity chefs, this is, to me, first of all, this is like, at least the way he's represented on TV, is like the best person in the whole wide world. You want him to be your dad, right? This is Rick Bayless from Fonterra Grill. And Rachel Reed doesn't know any of these people, but that's all right. You're gonna get to know these people a little bit just through our conversation, because their stories are very relevant to today's ideas. In fact, I made these slides up just about an hour ago after talking with some people downstairs at the bank who they're like my neighbors. They're literally downstairs in the office, and they're my bankers as well. And they said, what you're talking about is about like being a chef. So what do you think these people do on a daily basis? They wake up and they go to work. What do? Oh, hey, Kathleen knows Rick Bayless, sort of. That's awesome.
I have a friend whose husband is really close with Rick Bayless.
I want to be close with Rick Bayless. I want him to be my next door neighbor. I want to go over and hang out with him, help him plant, and pick things off his rooftop garden. Nathan's right. They manage people, kitchen systems. You know what they don't do? Most of them probably cook food anymore. They're all celebrity chefs, unless they're doing it on a show or they're doing it for to be for an audience. I bet Rick Bayless does, but every one of them own restaurants. So let's see, you've got Here's the back button. Kristen Kish, she's probably one of the youngest of the crew. And I went to a restaurant in Austin, by the way. It's called Arlo Gray. Anybody in Austin or in San Antonio should head over that way. And it's fantastic. And I recommend it highly. And it's in this cool hotel. I'm going to go there in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, that we'll have to get a reservation. And I think she owns several restaurants. Stephanie Izzard, she owns, there's a bunch of restaurants I listed. Girl and the Goat is the thing that she's best known for. I tried to get a reservation once and I was in town and they said, well, we have a reservation for you in 4 months. With that. Chicago and LA, she's got Little Goat, Duck Duck Goat, Cabra, Sugar Goat, Goat Group Catering. So she loves goats. And then Richard Blaze, he's really known for his hair. This is an early picture of him, but now he does this crazy stuff. He has really long hair and does really crazy stuff with it. And then, of course, Rick Bayless. If you've ever gone to the grocery store, you see his products, Frontera Grill salsas. We have that in our house. So what I'm trying to do here is just share that these are folks who started off much like we do. At one point in time, they probably were washing dishes or working the line, chef, something like that. In our world, we were, a lot of us grad assistants, crunching data. We were, maybe we were undergraduate research assistants. I was, where somebody would give me some data and I would just kind of like figure out how to put it all in rows and columns and make it not so dirty, right? And then we work our way up. Well, they all have achieved a certain amount of fame. They've started restaurants, but as you start a restaurant, what you do on a day-to-day basis is you rarely get into the kitchen. You hire somebody else to do that, and that's what you do as a firm director. And you're no longer interacting as a day-to-day chef for the most part. You think about inventory. You think about overhead costs. You think about tablecloths or service complaints and things like that. And you're not sitting down and working over a fire anymore. So I guess the question today is a question of verses. On the left, we've got the solopreneur in the evaluation world. We can call this person an evalpreneur. See, that's a term that was recently coined. And then on the right, you've got the team idea. So do you want to be a solo person or on the team? So when I thought through this presentation, I did a lot of verses. So you've got independence, right? On the left, you see you have more independence to do what you want to do. Hey, if you want to work at 2 a.m., as long as you get your work done and you're having communication with your clients and you're doing your deliverables and you're getting your accounts paid, you're free to do what you want to do. You want to take the afternoon and go spend time with your kids, which is what I was known to do. This is when I was a one-person operation. You could do that. On the right side, you've got a team of people who are all communicating and coordinating, and that's becomes a significant part of what you do is the communication and coordination. Then we've got revenue. On the left, you have a smaller amount of revenue for a one-person operation, and then hypothetically, if you're doing things right for a larger operation, you're generating more revenue. And hypothetically, if you're doing this right, you've got more profit per person, and it's a lucrative enterprise. So if you start a firm, you could hypothetically make more money because you're making money off of people who work for you. Of course, you're compensating them, and they're happy and they will want to work for you. But there's actually, perhaps, hypothetically, if you do it right, I keep saying there's a lot of that. Perhaps you could be making more money with a firm, if that's a motivator for you. On the other side, when you talk about administrative support, on the left, when you're a solo operation, you have to figure it all out. How does this work? How do I do accounting? How do I talk to the lawyer? I need to send in an invoice. And this actually matters quite a bit, because at the outset for a lot of us, that's why a lot of you come to these weekly sessions and why you attend the workshops that I do and attend other sessions like Ann's. office hours and others that people put on. We're asking questions, and there's a significant amount of time you need to commit to that you can't commit to the program evaluation work. You've got to sit down and figure out, all right, how am I going to write up this contract? Which is what I did for an hour and a half this morning. I wrote up this contract for a client, just trying to think about, hey, did I put all the right things in there? Did we make sure we have a provision for if they're for late payments? You have to figure that sort of thing out. You got to figure out how to make your computer work. You don't have, IT support for that. You are everything. On the right-hand side, you can hire people to do that sort of thing. And in my firm, I think my people enjoy it because they don't have to worry about invoicing. They don't have to worry about getting paid, how to get paid, how does that work? They know that that's taken care of. So on the other side of that, then you have overhead. There's almost no overhead when you first start. I love to say my costs were very small because I worked out of my house. My costs were the cost to drive my car to go see a client, my computer, and some insurance and lunch money. I'm sure there was others, but those were for my own payroll. That was it. It was pretty sweet. They kept it everything was very thin. Overhead grows per person, particularly when they're not doing their own invoicing and they're not doing their own work. You've got to know how to do that. And then all the software. My God, raise your hand if you're tired of yet another software bill. It's only $12.99 a month. I have a lot of those right now. And of course, although one of them seems necessary, but there's a lot of those little things and they all add up. Another thing to consider when you're thinking about being a solopreneur or a firm is market placement. When you're one person, only one you have fewer, your brand isn't going to be as well known because it's based upon your communication of your brand. When you're part of a firm, you have 5 people, that's 5 times, and probably even multipliers of that, people who are putting kind of your name out there. Of course, you got to worry about whether those folks are representing your brand appropriately. But on the right side, you see the firm. These are people that are finding out about your brand. So there's more people who would understand about who you are. Ultimately, you got to ask yourself the question, do you want to work in the business or on the business? Because as a firm owner, you don't get to do the work as frequently. You don't get to, unless you get to that point, which I think some people do. I bet Rick Bayless does this. I bet he does. I think he's gotten to a point where he's hired all the right people. He's got a good support staff who do the work, do the administrative function, keep him apprised of what he needs to do, and he gets to go and work in the business again. At some point, you get to do that. But for the most part, most firm directors, and I know a bunch of you have either have firms or have left bigger operations that you operated in and have condensed your work down to just kind of focus on working in the business again. I'm firmly on in the on side, on the right side, where I work on the business, whereas I used to work in the business as a solo. So using some memes, do you want to have independent work time? Or do you want teamwork? Teamwork makes the dream work. So here's 5.5 reflections for you. So realize that firms give scale and market awareness, yet it comes at a cost of flexibility and overhead. Solopreneurs have more independence, but need to schedule time and have worries and extra concerns about how they administer their businesses. But the really big takeaway, the big reflection I want you to think about here is that solopreneurs, if that's what you like and that's what you want to do, be careful about curating and cultivating your client work, because if you do like I did, and I'm okay with this, but if you did do what I did, you'll find yourself as a firm and you may not be able to spend as much time in the kitchen or being an evaluator, whereas you'll spend more time thinking about payroll and administrative stuff. All right, so that's where we're at. Here's the upcoming sessions coming up soon next week. We're going to do a core topic on business plan development, and this is going to be new stuff for anybody who's been around. I do these core topics every year. Business plan, I developed a framework that I want you guys to see that gives structure to the way that I do my workshops, and I'd be happy to share it and talk you through that. That's what we're going to do next week. And it's also what I'm going to share at the Summer Evaluation Institute, if anybody will be there in 2 weeks in Atlanta. Last week, we did the quantitative themes for the independent consulting survey. 2 weeks from now, I'll be doing the qualitative themes, kind of what was the thematic analysis. And I'll be borrowing from several of my colleagues who've done this work, and I'll be representing it and giving reference to them. Juliana Rosa will be joining us on June 16th to talk about her do a book review, Making the New Normal Work for You. So she loved that. And selecting a lawyer, Chelsea Horvath had a lot of questions in the AAE group about a month ago, and so she's going to give her reflections on that. So with that, I'm going to stop share. I'm going to stop the recording, and let's do some chatting.